Hey guys, Danny Boy EDH here with another Commander deck tech video. Today I'm going to be talking about Derevi Empyreal Tactician. It's a pretty good Bant commander, basically focusing around tap and untap shenanigans. He's a 2/3 flyer, and whenever he enters the battlefield or a creature you control deals damage to a player, combat damage rather, you may tap or untap target permanent. And he also has a third ability to put him on the battlefield from the command zone. It's a great way of getting around the commander tax and essentially gives Derevi flash as well. So it is a bit of a combo deck, using the untap shenanigans to create infinite mana. We've got Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter, which can create infinite mana as long as you have the right mana rocks, basically producing anything more than 2 with non-land permanents will give you infinite mana. Another way would be Basalt Monolith and Rings of Brighthearth to produce infinite colorless mana. We've got Freed from the Real, which combos with a few different creatures. Eric's Methes is one. You do need to remove the slumber counters first to make Eric's Methes a legal target, but once it is, it's a 12/12, so it's pretty huge, and it also taps for Simic, so you can create infinite green mana by tapping and untapping Eric's Methes with Freed from the Real. Fabro Elder will also create infinite mana here. A Bloom Tender would also work. It will tap for, if you have these on the field, it will tap for blue, green, and white. So you'll create infinite green and white as long as you have that on the field. And Ley Weaver will also work. This can create infinite blue as well, assuming you have 2 lands that tap for blue. And Ley Weaver does have a partner in Lore Weaver, so they will find each other out of your library, which is nice. This will help you a lot to create lots of mana, and here you can, with infinite mana, draw your whole library, and you could also force your opponents to draw their library as well. Not great if they're a control player, but it's a good way to draw yourself out to one of the win conditions. Dead-Eye Navigator and Palancron will also create infinite mana, and Dead-Eye Navigator will also pair with Derevi as well, as long as you have something like a Gilded Lotus on the field, because when this enters, it taps or untaps a permanent. So you can basically flicker him here with Dead-Eye Navigator and untap your Gilded Lotus, netting 1 mana every time. And so with all this infinite mana, what are you going to do with it? Well, one is Staff of Domination, one of the go-tos for infinite mana, and you don't need any colors too, so that's good. You can basically draw your whole library, gain infinite life, untap creatures. Thrasios will also draw you your whole library and get a bunch of lands on the field as well. Walking Ballista will ping your opponents to death. Urza will allow you to play things without paying their mana cost. And Kinnan Bonder Prodigy will put non-humans onto the field, so it won't get you an Urza, but could get you a Thrasios or other creatures. Mystic Archaeologist will allow you to draw your whole library if you have infinite mana. And then once you draw your whole library, we've got Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and Thassa's Oracle to win the game, provided there's no removal there. And so that's basically the main win con of the deck. So starting off, we're going to be trying to ramp pretty quickly. We got Exploration to play extra lands on your turn, Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch, Avacyn's Pilgrim. Wild Growth will also accelerate your ramp. Weathered Wayfarer will find you lands. Marrowleaf Pixie taps for a green or a blue, and it also is a flyer, so it's pretty good to get untap triggers on Derevi as well. And what will we be untapping? We got Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Azor's Gateway. You tap it, draw a card, then exile a card, and if 5 or more different CMCs are exiled this way, you gain 5 life, untap it, and transform it into a land that will add your life total of any color mana, so that can create some serious mana. Chromatic Lantern to fix our lands and tap for any color. Gilded Lotus is good for untap Shenanigans since it taps for 3. And then we got a Chromatic Orrery to spend mana as if it were any color. So say you have Rings and Basalt Monolith, you can play that, and essentially now you have all colored mana. And you can also tap it to draw. You will only draw 3 cards with it unless you are stealing somebody's permanents, but that's a good way to fix your mana without giving anyone else the advantages, such as Mycosynth Lattice. And so now let's get into the untap Shenanigans here. Voltaic Key will untap a target artifact, basically turning a Gilded Lotus or a Basalt Monolith into 5 mana rather than 3. Reconnaissance gives you pseudo vigilance and removes your creatures from combat if they're blocked. And Stasis will pretty much shut down a game. This is practically a win condition because it's not a cumulative upkeep. You can just pay 1 blue each turn. And as long as you have Derevi basically untapping your things on damage, you can keep everyone tapped out of the game. Ghostly Touch will give you a tap or untap trigger on attacks. Kira's Follower will untap another target permanent. Magistrate's Scepter, once you start getting the untaps going, or Rings of Brighthearth, it's a good way to get some extra turns. Sword of Feast and Famine will untap all your lands if you do damage. It does have pro green though, so Derevi will no longer Derevi can't target the creature that is equipped with it to do untaps, but it's worth it to untap all your lands. Bear Umbra will also untap your lands and give totem armor. Loyal Unicorn will give all your creatures vigilance. So it gives you even more room to work with your untap triggers. And it also prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to creatures you control, which is nice. Eternal Witness will grab any card back from the graveyard. And we've got a Tamiyo here. I really like the +1 in this deck. Choose up to 2 target creatures until your next turn. When either of them deals damage, you draw a card. So since a lot of our creatures are flying, we're going to be doing a lot of damage, and if you give them vigilance and you keep them untapped, you can trigger multiple times as well. And you can also target your opponent's creatures that way too. Mirari's Wake will double all the mana from our lands. Seedborn Muse untaps all our permanents on each other player's untap step. So that's pretty huge, especially if you've got something like Lore Weaver on the field to start drawing cards. Mother of Runes can tap to give one of your creatures protection from the color of your choice. Trophy Mage can search up Basalt Monolith, Rings of Brighthearth, a few other things, Chromatic Lantern, Magistrate's Scepter. Aven Mind Sensor is a flyer, and it will also stop your opponents from searching. Sower of Temptation will gain control of target creature for as long as it's on the battlefield. It's basically the same cost as a control magic, but it is a 2/2 flyer as well, so it can get you some untapped triggers. Windborn Muse, basically a ghostly prison that flies. Archon of Absolution, same thing, except it's only for paying 1 instead of 2, but it does have pro white, so Derevi can't Can't untap it, but it is pretty good against, you know, it can't be pathed or anything like that. Willbreaker is a great way to steal your opponent's things. You basically use Derevi's untap trigger, and you target on damage. You say, I will untap your creature, and then you will gain control of it as long as you have a Willbreaker on the field. Consecrated Sphinx for huge card draw. It's also a flyer. And so basically assembling the combo, you're going to want a few tutors in there. Enlightened Tutor to find an artifact or enchantment. Green Sun Zenith can find you a green creature such as Layweaver or Thrasios or Kinnan. Eladamri's Call will find you any creature. Fabricate to search up artifacts. Wargate can find any permanent card and puts it directly onto the battlefield. So that's a pretty good one. We've got a few counters in here to protect our combos. Got Swan Song, Counterspell, Negate, Arcane Denial, Overwhelming Denial, Cryptic Command, super useful card. You can draw with it, or you can tap all your creatures out before, or your opponent's creatures before you swing in for damage. You can also bounce things and counter spells. Cyclonic Rift, the classic. Krosan Grip to destroy an artifact or enchantment on a split second to remove the stack. And Swords to Plowshares will exile a creature and its controller gains life equal to its power. Not a whole lot of removal, it's a few more counter spells, but that's basically the deck. Not too many basic lands here. We've got a total of 4 in the deck, basically just to search them up, and got a couple forests to maybe play an exploration or a mana dork on turn 1. We got a Dryad Arbor, which taps for green and is also a creature, so it can be found with Green Sun Zenith on turn 1. Seed of the Synod is an artifact, so it can be untapped with Voltaic Key. I don't really see a time where you would search for it with Fabricate, but you could find it that way as well. We got a Command Tower, Seaside Citadel that enters tapped, Evolving Wilds, Bant Panorama also to search. We got Flooded Strand and Windswept Heath for our fetches. And with those you can find any of these Shocklands, Hollowed Fountain, Breeding Pool, and Temple Garden. And once you got those on the field, you can play Glacial Fortress or Sunpetal Grove untapped. Sea of Clouds will come in untapped as long as it's early in the game. Razor Verge Thicket and Seachrome Coast are the fast lands. We got some pain lands in Yavimaya Coast and Adarkar Wastes. Flooded Grove to filter your blue and green. And we got some bounce lands here. These are pretty key cards with the untap triggers. Basically returning a land to your hand, and then they will tap for 2 colored mana, which is nice. Lotus Field has hexproof, enters tapped, but you also have to sacrifice 2 lands, but it will tap for 3 of any one color. So it's basically a Gilded Lotus on a hexproof land. So Lotus Petal, or Lotus Field rather, would be an infinite combo with Derevi and Deadeye Navigator. That would give you infinite colored mana. Reliquary Tower for maximum hand size, Temple of the False God, and Ancient Tomb to tap for 2 mana at a time. And then we've got an Arch of Erazka to draw into some of our pieces if we're a little slow in the game. But yeah, that is pretty much the deck, guys. Let me know what you think about it. I know there's definitely lots of ways to build with this commander, but I do find that this this deck does get to the combo pretty quickly, and it's pretty fun to play. So yeah, let me know what you would add to the deck in the comments, and let me know if there's any other commanders you'd like to see my videos for. Thanks.